Let us talk about the magnificent theatrical performance of a dying manipulator. They spent their entire pathetic life dragging you into the mud. They lied, they orchestrated heavy smear campaigns, and they actively enjoyed watching you bleed. But now, the absolute, cold hand of reality is finally pulling them down into the dark. Their clock is permanently ticking down, and suddenly they want to talk. They desperately reach out from the edge of the void, begging for a final conversation. They want to hand you what they call their final truth. But the chosen one absolutely knows better. A snake does not stop being a snake just because it is finally choking on its own venom. Society expects you to play the role of the weak, forgiving saint. They aggressively push the narrative that you must sit by the hospital bed, hold their trembling hand, and politely wipe away their sins. They tell you that death washes away all debts. What an incredibly foolish, cowardly fairy tale. Death is not a magical eraser for toxic behavior. Their sudden, frantic remorse has absolutely nothing to do with you. They are not seeking your forgiveness to heal your heavy wounds. They are desperately seeking your forgiveness so they can clean up their own dirty, rotting tombstone. Watch how perfectly the grand manipulator operates, even at the absolute end. They think they can summon you like an obedient dog for their grand finale. They expect you to rush back into the burning building they intentionally set on fire. But you just stand there, miles away, your jaw heavily locked, breathing in elite, highly oxygenated air. You do not owe them a beautiful, emotional closing scene. You absolutely refuse to be the unpaid priest in their pathetic religion. Let them pack their bags with the heavy, toxic guilt they earned. Let them carry it into the dark, alone. Let us closely observe the intense, suffocating pressure of society. The flying monkeys and the blind sleepwalkers will violently, aggressively point their trembling fingers at you. They will call you cold, bitter, and completely heartless. How can you ignore them? They whisper. They are out of time. But you look directly through their pathetic guilt trips. Your titanium boundaries do not magically evaporate just because someone else's fragile biological clock is finally running out. You absolutely do not owe a toxic parasite a premium, VIP seat in your elite sanctuary, no matter how close to the edge they are standing. Do you truly understand what their final truth actually is? It is absolutely not a beautiful, cinematic moment of spiritual closure. It is the ultimate, desperate power grab. They want to drag you back into their chaotic, muddy arena one last time. They want to see your face twist in pain. They want to desperately feel like they still hold the heavy iron strings to your mind. They are starved for your premium energy, and they want to feed on it right before the curtain falls. But the chosen one refuses to be their final meal. You permanently lock the iron gate and walk entirely away. This is the chilling, magnificent reality of absolute self-respect. You do not need to hear their weak, trembling apologies to find your inner peace. Your peace was forged in the dark, heavy silence after you violently evicted them from your life years ago. You sit comfortably on your iron throne, entirely unbothered by the frantic, dying noise of a failed manipulator. You let them shout their final truth into a completely empty, pitch-black room. You deny them the audience they so desperately crave. And in that heavy silence, their grand illusion finally, permanently shatters. Let us completely destroy the pathetic myth of closure. Society aggressively preaches that you need their final, gasping apology to finally heal your deep, heavy wounds. What an incredibly toxic, dependent way to live. The chosen one absolutely does not wait for a broken, dying parasite to hand them the key to their own freedom. You already picked the heavy iron lock yourself. Your unshakable peace is not conditional on their sudden, frantic realization of guilt. You built a magnificent titanium empire out of their permanent absence. You do not need a rotting ghost to validate your reality. Do you want to know what a master manipulator truly, deeply fears? It is absolutely not the end of their biological life. They are entirely terrified of stepping into the pitch-black void, knowing they have zero psychological impact on you. They are horrified by the cold, heavy weight of their own absolute irrelevance. When they finally realize that their impending doom does not make you flinch, that you are not running to their bedside with desperate tears in your eyes, that is the exact moment their fragile, manufactured ego violently shatters for the final time. You punish them simply by remaining unbothered. The weak enablers will weep. The flying monkeys will furiously pound on your heavy steel doors, begging you to show a single, microscopic drop of mercy. They will aggressively demand that you lower your premium standards just this once, for the sake of the dying. But a true king never descends from the heavy iron throne to negotiate with the dead. You look down at the frantic, noisy circus of their final act, and you offer them nothing but a cold, dead, unblinking stare. Your premium energy is an exclusive asset. You are absolutely not a charity for the intentionally toxic. Let us watch the absolute, terrifying panic of their final moments. They sent their urgent, dramatic message, fully expecting you to come running with tears in your eyes. They honestly thought the heavy, looming shadow of death would magically unlock your titanium doors. But the chosen one simply reads the pathetic, desperate message and deletes it. You do not owe a toxic manipulator a beautiful, cinematic absolution. You let the heavy, ticking clock run out while you sit comfortably in your elite, unbothered silence. Their grand finale is officially canceled because the only audience member they wanted refused to buy a ticket. The weak, fragile world will loudly gasp at your chilling coldness. They will aggressively preach that you are heartless for intentionally denying a dying wish. But you look directly through their pathetic, heavily decorated morals. Forgiveness is absolutely not a mandatory exit ticket you punch for a parasite. You are not responsible for cleaning up the massive, toxic mess they intentionally created throughout their entire life. Let them carry their heavy, rotting luggage all the way to the end. You do not stoop down to carry their heavy cross just because they are finally too weak to hold it. And this is the magnificent, chilling climax of your psychological evolution. You are completely, undeniably detached from their dramatic final performance. The dying manipulator suddenly realizes their ultimate premium weapon, guilt, has violently shattered against your heavy iron walls. You offer them the most terrifying, devastating punishment in your entire arsenal, a completely blank, unblinking stare. You do not hate them. You do not pity them. You simply, permanently do not care. You watch their chaotic show end in absolute, heavy darkness. Let us assume, for a single pathetic second, that their final truth is actually genuine. Let us pretend they finally realize the massive, toxic destruction they intentionally caused throughout their entire life. But does their sudden, dying clarity magically rewrite the brutal history? Absolutely not. The chosen one does not offer a premium refund for a lifetime of intentional abuse just because their fragile store is finally closing down. Their heavy, suffocating guilt is their own rusted cross. You are absolutely not going to carry it for them. They must drag it to the very end alone. The weak enablers will desperately crowd around you, whispering that you will deeply regret this coldness. They will aggressively warn you that you will be permanently haunted by their ghost if you don't show up. What an incredibly weak, laughable illusion. The only thing haunting the chosen one is the glorious, elite silence of a heavily fortified room. You absolutely do not fear the ghost of a toxic parasite. Why? Because you already buried their memory years ago. You violently killed their psychological influence while they were still breathing. So, when the urgent, frantic message finally arrives, desperately demanding your immediate presence at the edge of their grave, what is your magnificent response? You look at the heavy iron door of your titanium fortress, and you slowly, deliberately add another heavy lock. You sit down in your quiet, dimly lit sanctuary, entirely unbothered by the chaos outside. The weak world is frantically burning down its last pathetic seconds. But inside your elite, unshakable empire, time is permanently, beautifully standing still. Let this be the absolute, undeniable final word on the matter. The grand manipulator is finally out of time and out of tricks. You are not a rehabilitation center for their dying ego. When they finally close their eyes and step into the absolute dark, you will be completely detached, sitting comfortably in an elite, unshakable silence that their chaotic mind could never penetrate. They willingly chose the toxic path. They built the burning house, and you are absolutely not going back inside to hold their trembling hand. The weak, sleepwalking world will continue to violently defend the dying parasite. They will aggressively whisper that you are cold, that you are the villain of this tragic ending. But you sit heavily on your titanium throne, entirely unaffected by their pathetic tears. You have built a magnificent, heavily fortified empire out of the very boundaries they tried to destroy. Their final breath is officially no longer your problem. They are exactly where they belong, alone with the heavy, rotting consequences of their own actions. This is the exact, magnificent peak of your absolute psychological liberation. You look down at the chaotic, fading stage of their fake life one last time. Not with anger, not with a desperate thirst for a final apology, but with a profound, terrifying emptiness. You offer them the ultimate, suffocating punishment of absolute zero emotion. Let them violently choke on the bitter ashes of their own manipulation. Let them permanently fade into the pitch-black void of irrelevance. You absolutely do not ever look back. You do not check the rearview mirror to see if they finally found peace in the dark. You keep your posture perfectly straight, your jaw heavily locked. You radiate the unyielding, terrifying aura of an absolute king who cannot be guilt-tripped by a grave. The invisible chains are permanently, violently broken. You survive their massive world of lies not by forgiving them, but by completely starving them of your premium energy. From this exact moment forward, you are completely, undeniably untouchable. You are the chosen one, and you have successfully outlived the parasite. If you have permanently locked the iron gate and refuse to be their final victim, drop a comment below and hit subscribe. The pathetic, dying circus is officially over. Step entirely into the magnificent, quiet truth and rule. The ultimate power is yours. Now, rule.